Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be drawing a devious looking chibi. So let's not waste any time, let's just get on into it. You can see I put one basic little line here. It's a 4-inch line, vertical, split in half, and that's going to give me just a couple of guidelines to get started. But let's go ahead and start drawing the shape of the head. Notice that the placement of this is such that it doesn't actually touch that very top line. That's where the hair is going to go in my basic plan here. And as it comes down here, as the head is, it's pretty circular at the top. As it comes down here, it's going to come to a point at the chin, and I'm having that point come a little bit over to one side of this line, just part of the pose. She's going to be sort of rubbing her hands together in classic snarling villain style. I should say that this pose is actually based on an old video that I did, 20 ways to draw chibi emotions. Maybe I can link to that later on. But I'm going to put one basic guideline here, about a third from the bottom. This is going to be the guideline for her eyes. Okay. But let's go ahead and move on and do the rest of the pose before we go on to doing the head. And I'm going to put shoulders right here. One shoulder, not both of them. That would be weird. Two shoulders on one side of the body. Crilly, stop it! Don't be a freak. But the upper arm is coming down here, and one thing about chibi characters is they tend to have sort of chubby, baby-like features. Although this character, the pose that I did, is maybe got sort of a larger body proportionally than you often see. A lot of times the chibi's body is incredibly small. Not so in the pose that I'm doing. So anyway, the arm comes down to the elbow, coming back up here. The width is getting a little smaller towards the wrist, which is of course based on human anatomy. And I'm just putting a light little circle here for where the hands are going to be. This character, like I said, is going to be rubbing her hands together. Now, watch as I come down here to the bottom of her torso. The pose involves her sort of shifting her weight to one side. And as a result, as we come down here to draw the hips, much more of the body is over on this side of that line because of the way she's shifting her weight. And then it's kind of coming back, the bottoms of her legs start pointing back again towards that line. So I'm trying to think of how to give you good guidelines, for placing this stuff. But I think that initial line helps you to maybe see where these various lines intersect. And of course it's a challenge to make sure that both of the thighs, for example, are about the same width. Again, sort of eyeball, look at what you're doing here, measure them as best you can, and make adjustments accordingly. Over here we're going to have the other side of her arm, the other arm, not the other side of her arm, come on, man. And it's coming back up here to do this rubbing the hands together thing. And that basically gives us what we need in terms of the placement of the parts of the body, and we can get on to doing the fun part of the face. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Now, believe it or not, the eyes in this particular pose are nothing more than horizontal lines. And this is the point where certain people who watch my videos say, but I can't even draw horizontal lines. And if you can't draw horizontal lines like this, I'm so sorry that I can get a ruler, just do your best. I don't know what to tell you. But now we're going on and drawing the eyebrows. This one at a certain angle, sort of focus on that angle. It's not a very extreme angle. This one is going to have a little more of a point down, sort of pointy, downy quality. Me and my fantastic way of describing things. But there's a little bit of a zigzag at the end of this one here. And that is a very common chibi technique for the sort of furrowed brow. You'll often see it in angry characters. In fact, my other video about the angry character had one of those zigzags, I'm pretty sure. And now we're going to go ahead and skip the nose. Gotta love chibi characters. You can just skip the nose. That's why people who hate to draw noses love chibi characters. You don't have to draw the nose. I am drawing one more horizontal line, so you got the practice here. So now you can draw this horizontal line here, and then raise up on one side. My idea is a sort of a lopsided, sneering grin that goes way up higher on one side than on the other. And then I'm going to kind of readjust my chin line here a little bit to finish off the shape of her head. Now it's time to move on to the hair. What I want to do to begin with is put one basic guideline up here that's going to show me sort of the width of her forehead, and then quickly dash in a couple of lines here for strands, like one strand of hair right here that kind of crosses in front of her eye. This is a character named Reika from Miki Falls, my graphic novel series. And so this is she's a long-haired character, so of course the chibi has to be correspondingly long-haired. So I'm giving a couple of strands here that pop out in front of her head, and maybe one other strand here. I often see these sort of indications of the hair coming up here at the top of the forehead before dropping back down. That might be some little detail you want to add to your devious, scheming chibi. So we got basically 3 strands of hair, and then behind those strands is going to be this big mass of her long hair. And notice that it does sort of float above the head. It reaches the top of that first guideline. And this is just a basic smooth shape that comes around, and you may want to focus on where the line of her hips is, that sort of indentation there, so as to know where to stop the hair. But of course, I'm all for people being original and coming up with their own hairstyles, so you may completely change the hairstyle. I mean, that's one of the nice things. You can just take this pose and plug your own character into it, male, female, whatever. So this is that sort of finishes off the hair. Now let's add the clothing here. She's wearing a sort of a halter top. Hope I'm getting that right. You know me, I never know the words for anything. But I do believe this is called a halter top. And this is where I maybe diverge a little bit from a lot of classic chibi. I'm giving her sort of the anatomy of a grown-up rather than of a tiny little baby. There are different ways of doing chibi. I always get a little bit angry when people are like, "That's wrong. All chibis are supposed to be like this." And I'm like, "Well, no, different artists come up with their own ways." So I'm doing one hand. This hand over here is coming up on top of the other, and then the other just doing very loose indications of fingers. You almost never see highly detailed fingers in a chibi drawing, which is nice because drawing hands is very hard. That's the glory of chibi. You don't really need to know how to draw hands well. Now this is the lower end of this halter top coming across here. And then I decided to give her, are they called low-rise jeans, or sort of like leather pants almost, that are going to come. So you see the indentation of where the hips come in, and this line comes really quite low across here. Again, it's a character from my graphic novel series, Reika. She does indeed wear that style of pants. She's supposed to be kind of the bad girl, but she's not all bad. In any case, here's one of the fun things about this pose, and you sometimes see this, I think, in cartoons of all kinds, not just chibi ones, but when the character is going to be devilish and scheming, they actually turn into, temporarily, an actual devil. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add some horns. I did this in that first video. But that video, it shows 20 different ways of drawing chibi characters, but it doesn't actually give you line-by-line lessons. It's more of a kind of, here, watch me draw video, which some people enjoy, but others find incredibly frustrating. This isn't how to draw a video. What are you trying to pull here, man? But let's not forget the belly button. Drop that in right there. Devilish belly button. And finally, the devil's tail, which I'm going to have come down here. And the way I like to do it is to have it sort of loop across itself right in front. And that, to me, that adds just a little bit of dimension. I suppose the one little tip in terms of drawing a devil's tail is that you do have to watch the width of it thicker near the body, and then, tapering off as it reaches that classic devil's sort of triangular tip down there, and you know, it can be actually quite tricky to maintain the width of that line and so forth. In fact, that's when it comes to doing the final line work, that's the thing I'm most worried about, is getting this to be a graceful line. And as I have said in some of my videos, because I've got this taped into place and I can't move it around, you may see me trying to move myself around in order to get this line down here nice and smooth. So let's go ahead and kick it into time-lapse. I'm going to do final line work with my trusty black Prismacolor colored pencil. And then I'll come back and hopefully have a little time left for giving you some tips on shading this illustration. Okay, so we're pretty much done, although I noticed that I had not put any ears in here. So I'm going to go ahead and add just small indications of ears. Why not, huh? Even devil girls have ears. And it's time to switch over to my Dixon Ticonderoga, my sort of sketching and shading pencil of choice, and I'm going to go ahead and do some of this real time, some of the shading in real time, particularly the hair, I think, and then we'll probably do final polishing of the illustration in time-lapse. But I do have a bad habit of doing, you know, carefully taking everyone through step by step, getting the lines in place, and now I'm going to finish all the shading in time-lapse. And then it's all done and everyone's like, dude, you did it again. You did time-lapse through all of the shading and we don't get any. In fact, right now I'm like, it's even worse because I'm not even telling you any tips. I'm just making stupid jokes. So what I'm doing here to create this even tone is I'm holding my pencil very far away from the tip, and I'm keeping it kind of low to the page, so that we're getting as much of the side of the pencil lead as possible to touch the page. And this allows me to create a tone rather than a series of lines. And so that's my little tip for creating an even gray tone like that. And I'm not pushing down too hard, just sort of trying to gradually build up some sort of a tone here. Now, my feeling for making this hair a little more three-dimensional is that we're going to try to get darkness here in this back area of the hair. And so at this point I am trying to press down a little harder and darken that tone. In fact, almost unconsciously I find myself pulling my fingers down closer to the tip so as to be able to exert more pressure and darken that tone right there. So that's, you know, some of these things you do almost without thinking as an artist, and I have to sort of pay attention myself to see how is it that I am making this darker. Well, it does seem to help to pull down tighter, and then of course at this point you're not going to get that smooth tone that you were getting before, and you may have to sort of work at it a little to smoothen, is that a word? To smoothen things out? To smootherate the tone that you're creating. But I do find that it helps to generally speaking, to get darker tones in the bottom and back areas of the hair, allowing it to get lighter at the top. Now, you'll see a lot of chibi characters and manga characters of all kinds having a highlight at the top, and I thought I might actually try to do that with the eraser of my pencil. Let's see if it works. And I'm going to go ahead and come in here and just sort of erase away just a little line. I've noticed a lot of manga artists, anime artists, creating just a little thin line of highlight for the hair, and I think it is kind of a nice effect. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for her. Just keep it quite light, and I'm darkening things up just a touch at the top. I think that helps sort of round things out. I might add just a little shade, like her hair. This devilish girl, her hair is crossing in front of her eyes, and so creating a little bit of a drop shadow there. And basically, I feel like I'm almost done with the hair area, and I would love to walk you through every single step of the shading, but I think I should, just to keep this video at a reasonable length, do the rest of it in time-lapse. So, once again, Krilly, you fail us in our hour of need, and you go back to time-lapse. I might have known. So let's go ahead and finish off the shading in time-lapse, and I'll be back to do one final little touch that I think will finish off this drawing. So let's get to it. All right, well, I think we're pretty much done with this drawing. I'm just going to add one final touch, and that is I asked my wife, Miki, who is Japanese, what would this character be saying if she was like scheming and you want to do like that scheming laugh thing? And she said, oh, definitely it should be ihihihi. So, and I had her write this out for me, and interestingly, she wrote it in katakana rather than hiragana. Those of you who study Japanese, you may know that katakana is used most often for foreign language words, but it is also used sometimes for little sound effect, laughing sounds, and so forth. So I'm just going to drop in a little bit of a ihihi here using hiragana, and I asked her, is it okay if I make each subsequent hi smaller than the other, so it's sort of like trailing off? And she said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So that's why I'm making each one of these little he symbols a little bit smaller as it goes down. And I'll just go ahead and darken this in with my trusty black Prismacolor. Still waiting for the Prismacolor company to come to me and say, Krilly, we want to pay you millions of dollars for all the free advertising you've been doing over the years. I will not hold my breath, but it has come up a number of times in these videos, hasn't it? Of course, they have helped me finish my books by way of their product, so I guess it's a fair trade. Anyway, that kind of finishes off this video. I hope you all found it useful. I want to thank anyone, though, who has supported me by getting any of my books. We have Miki Falls, we have Brody's Ghost, Book 3, working on Book 4, hope to have that out as soon as possible, and Mastering Manga, my How to Draw manga book, which is filled with information on chibi characters, as well as all manner of other things. Thank you so much for watching my videos, for joining me on Facebook. It's markcrilly.com. Or not markcrilly.com, it's facebook.com/markcrillyofficial. That's where you can find me over there. And that is actually a very nice place to stay in touch with me. And very often I turn to people there on Facebook for advice in terms of my upcoming videos. So if you want to have a role in deciding what my upcoming videos are, by all means, join me there, facebook.com/MarkCrillyOfficial. But it is definitely high time for me to lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll be back with another one real soon.